Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with more Fallen Mitsurugi. I've changed up the build a little bit and removed a lot of the brickier cards I was playing. I'm going to show you the build here after I show you these replays. This will be a going second game against Elfnote that actually does highlight some pretty good back and forth gameplay here. They're going to begin by hitting me with the VODS, and I gotta say, I've mentioned this in videos before, but I want to mention it here now. I generally think that using VODS on your own turn one against your opponent's plays is a bit of a misplay, almost no matter what, because you might end up in a scenario where you have no cards on your field and you're able to use the VODS later. Not only that, but Elfnote in particular has the ability to send VODS away with its continuous spell card, Welcome Home, as well as some other effects. So I really think that you should be saving the VODS if you don't know what your opponent's playing against and you're going first. It's true that you might occasionally get one draw off turn 0 plays, but even then you have to figure that you've likely discouraged your opponent from making the turn 0 plays that would give you a draw, which is part of the point of using VODS, I understand, but I don't think things like Canine Izuna or Dracotail Phimena are so prevalent that you should necessarily be doing this every single time. Now here, they are going to get the Welcome Home off the Tenia and use it to send away the Psyframe driver. I don't know why I couldn't remember the name. Of course, we're just going to use the Ash Blossom in response. So here, we're going to get some pretty awesome plays in our turn once we search with pre-prep. Well, never mind, because we're finding the Mitsurugi mirror on top of our deck, naturally. That gives us no plays. Here, our opponent did have a Maxi. I gotta say, though, I think I would have just played into Maxi here at least a little bit. Let's say I drew literally any other card besides Mirror. Let's say another Hand Trap, just for example's sake. Pre-prep could have grabbed a Mirror and Habakiri, and at that point, I think I would have used Mirror to summon out the Murakumo, given them one draw, gotten the board wipe, and then set the Magatama, had that in the Super Poly plus the Murakumo effect, and then passed. I think that would have been far more than good enough, but again, of course, we happen to top deck the one Mitsurugi mirror. In any case, they're going to pass over to their turn. We're going to pass over to their turn, and they're going to use the Welcome Home to send away the Tenia for the Lucina. Now Lucina can grab the Regina, and now Regina can send away the Welcome Home in order to summon and pull the Elfnote Power Patron out of the deck. Of course, as soon as the Power Patron is summoned, I'm going to activate Super Poly. I could have technically waited for it to use the level buff effect first, but I didn't want to take any chances and risk them just syncering directly into a 7. So I'll just Super Poly, we'll throw the Mud Dragon in defense mode, that way it can block the Regina attack, and they'll pass right back over to me. We're going to draw for turn, finally finding some live plays here with the Mitsurugi Ritual. We're going to activate sending the Kusanagi and Aramasa from our deck to the graveyard, and now we can summon out the Murakumo. Okay, now from here we are going to activate Chainlink 1 Kusanagi, Chainlink 2 Aramasa, Chainlink 3 Murakumo. That way we can chain block against both Ash Blossom and Ghost Bell. Alright, Murakumo is going to wipe the Regina, Aramasa adds Habakiri, which I have not used yet this duel, and Kusanagi is going to get the Ritual back into our hand. Now, they are going to hit us with that Droll and Lockbird, so I'm definitely going to want to chain the Murakumo effect in response. And in all seriousness, I've already won the game right here, right? Because now my opponent's in literal complete top deck mode. They have no cards in hand, nothing on field, and no relevant graveyard effects, which means whatever they top deck, I can just negate with Murakumo. But we can still find some amount of plays here, even under the Droll. I'm going to use the Ritual to tribute the Habakiri in hand in order to then summon out the Futsuno Mitama from deck, giving me at least a few more bodies in case they happen to be able to special summon something, or something like that. But again, with the Murakumo having the ability to negate and them having no other cards in hand, there is no real chance for them to be able to come back here, so they'll just concede. But even if they had like one other card in hand, like that VODS, then I still could have used the, Futsuno Mitama to revive stuff, and the, quick play spell, the Magatama, in order to destroy cards. But you see why my opponent really should not have thrown away that VODS. In this specific scenario, they could have still potentially used that card they top decked to try to make some amount of plays, and then they would have had the VODS discard to push through the Murakumo. Not to mention, my opponent did, in fact, end up in a board state where they had no cards in hand or field. I not only wanted to start with this duel because it was a pretty good back and forth, but it really highlights this point that I've been making across multiple videos now. If you are going first, it is generally not a good idea to blind VODS your opponent. Granted, in some decks or scenarios, your hand might be in such a way where it does end up being a little bit to your advantage, but generally speaking, for the sole purpose of trying to catch a draw off of turn 0 plays, I think it is a misplay. So, now that we've shown that, let's go into our next game. Alright, here's a game up against Radiant Typhoon, and in this one, I'm going to demonstrate how you can use Fallen of the White Dragon to actually go into Mitsurugi plays. It's a lot simpler than you might think, honestly. So here we have the Fallen of the White Dragon. I've also got Dimension Shifter, and I'll definitely fire it off on turn 1. I know I just talked about not using Fulos on turn 1 right off the bat, but of course Dimension Shifter is different. The lingering effect that banishes every card does go into the opponent's turn, so I have a reason to do it here. Now I'm going to normal summon Fallen of the White Dragon. We can't special summon because we can't pay the cost for Dimension Shifter, but even if I could, I would still normal summon here anyway, because we can then special summon the Ecclesia. Hang on. Yeah, we can still special summon the Ecclesia from the deck. Dogmatica Ecclesia. We're not going to activate the effect, though, because if we activated the effect to search a Dogmatica card, we would not be able to special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. So, by normal summoning Fallen of White, specialing Ecclesia, not activating the effect, we overlay the King of the Fair Limps. I told you it's a lot simpler than you might think. It just involves not using the summon or search effects. It's not optimal if you already have another Mitsurugi starter like Habakiri in your hand to do that, but in a situation like this, it's definitely the best play. Now, we can still make a good amount of Mitsurugi plays even under the Dimension Shifter. We can not only set up the Murakumo from our hand off the ritual, but Kusanagi will add cards from the banishment back, meaning we can just grab the Mitsurugi ritual back even though it got banished and then go to the graveyard. Not only that, but Mitsurugi ritual monsters can still special summon themselves if they are attributed, even if they get banished, because they don't have to summon specifically from the graveyard. They just say, if this card gets tributed, special summon it. Now, I think I actually made a little bit of a misplay here. I think I should have pulled the other Habakiri out of the deck, because I think the attack drop effect would have mattered, although I end up linking it into IP anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter. That might have been a bit of a misplay too. But as we go to end main, we actually encounter the Nibiru. I don't even remember the last time I got hit with a Nibiru. I really was not seeing it coming here, probably for that reason. We're of course going to chain Murakumo, which was actually a misplay, because they could have actually just sent the Nibiru, and then they wouldn't have given me a token. But they also would have had the Nib body. Maybe they actually value that here. But what they actually discarded was Call By. That does also make sense, though, because Dimension Shifter is going to banish everything anyway, so it's not like Call By is going to get a ton of use here. So yeah, they probably just valued having the Nibiru body over having the Call By in this scenario, which I think is completely reasonable. Okay, so they are going to use the Radiant Typhoon Vision. I won't chain Ash Blossom. They do end up hitting the Impulse here, though, which is very unfortunate. After that, they are going to summon the Crocea, and this, of course, I will definitely end up Ash Blossoming. Okay, so now all we have left, really, is the Great Purification and these Ritual monsters in hand. If I can find any one of my Ritual spells, or any card that searches it, we'll definitely be good to go, but definitely in top deck mode here. We'll take the damage from the Crocea and the Nib. Main phase 2, they link the Eldam and the Crocea into the Varun. The one upside to Shifter here, well, not the one upside, but in this scenario, where Shifter's putting in work is by banishing these Mystical Space Typhoons. And in fact, I think that's why my opponent didn't activate Mystical Space Typhoon to pop my face down and use Varun to get Mandate. Because if they had, that would have meant 2 of their 3 Mystical Space Typhoons would be banished forever. And obviously, Radiant Typhoon really needs to loop that card. So I think my opponent played very well here, waiting until my turn to end up using the MST. Now here, all we top deck is Fulos, our literal worst possible top deck. So I decided to say, you know what, screw it. I'll just normal summon, battle over the Varun. And if I had had like even 200 or 150 more life points, there's a good chance we might have actually lived doing this if they didn't have another monster here. Of course, they got a draw off the Mandate. Actually, I don't think they do, because I'm pretty sure... Well, can't check now, but I don't think they have 3 quick play spells in the graveyard. Granted, they could get one by activating Mystical Space Typhoon, but nah, either way, that was going to be enough to finish us off there. I think we were one good top deck away from making a comeback, but still a pretty decent back and forth. Still got one more game to show you. Let's end off with that one, and I'll show you the updated list. And our final game is going to be against Odeon Stun. And I'm not saying every Odeon deck is a stun deck, but this is literally just, yeah, they're playing like the man with the marks and a couple of support cards, but it's mostly just floodgates. So thankfully we get to go first here, although as you can see, we didn't actually open any plays. This deck is actually a lot brickier than I thought it was going to be, but I think it's still pretty solid. We're going to set Super Poly and Fallen in the Virtuous. I definitely want to use Fallen in the Virtuous against the Dimensional Fissure, because even though I kind of don't care if my stuff gets banished, I mean, as you saw, we can make plays through Shifter, and of course we play the card ourselves, I still want to be able to use the Fallen in the Virtuous here to be able to not just pop the D-Shifter, but then get another copy to potentially pop another Floodgate later. I saw set 2 and then D-Fissure, and I'm like, okay, so they're probably on a stun deck. So yeah, we want to chain Fallen in the Virtuous to the activation of Dimensional Fissure, because if we were to let the D-Fissure resolve, then try to Fallen in the Virtuous later, we wouldn't be able to, because this sends the graveyard as cost. However, since Dimensional Fissure is still on the chain link, it hasn't resolved yet, meaning monsters don't get banished yet, meaning we could chain Fallen in the Virtuous. Of course, I'll add a copy from the deck off Albion before going into my turn, and here's the Habakiri. We love to see it. Habakiri is going to activate here, but then they're going to chain the Dominus Impulse, which is pretty rough. Now we need to find another top deck here at some point in the future, but we'll simply set the Fallen in the Virtuous and then pass. Alright, opponent's going to take their turn, set one card, pass back over to me, and we draw and find the Mitsurugi Ritual. We're playing 3 copies of it, so obviously pretty likely that we're going to see it, and I was really surprised when my opponent didn't have any kind of response here. I was expecting a Solemn or maybe some kind of Floodgate, but they didn't even have priority passed over to them, and they're just going to concede right after that. I think what happened here is they did have some, I mean, they had to have had some kind of response, right? They had 4 face down cards, but I think it might have been like an Apophis monster or a Floodgate, and of course I can simply threaten with the Fallen in the Virtuous. I can just chain that, and because, a lot of the Floodgates and the Apophis monsters are continuous trap cards, if you destroy them as they're activating, much like Dimensional Fissure, they actually don't get to resolve, meaning that you'll never be subject to their effects. Even if they had something like Macrocosmos, not only could I still pop that, but then I don't even care about the banishing in the first place. However, it's not just that initial pop off the Fallen in the Virtuous. I will then be able to dump Ecclesia and shuffle another card back. That combined with Murakumo's built-in negate definitely means that even if they have 4 face-down cards, it almost doesn't matter what floodgates they could even be, I'm still very much threatening their board state here. So alright, now that we've shown those games, let me show you the deck list and we will finish off. Okay, so here is my list for Fallen Mitsurugi. This iteration is a lot closer to like a pure Mitsurugi deck, right? We're playing like the Futsu no Mitama, we've got the Magatama, we have 3 copies of the Ritual. You could easily play Wosu in this deck too, if you wanted that like Kaiju effect, but we already have a lot of board breaking ability with a full playset of Super Poly and a full playset of the Fallen and the Virtuous. I will say, and as you saw in those games, in my experience, this deck does tend to be at least a little bit bricky. Granted, as we demonstrated in that second duel, the Fallen of the White Dragon can allow you to go into King of the Fairlimps and then make your Mitsurugi plays. However, that still doesn't leave a ton of starters here, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is fine, but not as much as a lot of meta decks have. And of course, with pre-prep, as we saw in the first replay, if you find the mirror as well, then this is no longer a starter. So 3 of your 10 starters have a bit of a condition on them as well. The Habakiri as a starter is also a little bit rough because if it gets negated, unlike a lot of other starters, you can't just try to use it again on your follow-up turn. It's a once per duel effect. So I think that all does kind of contribute to making this deck a little bit more bricky, but because we have more off engine, especially these board breakers, even if you have to go second or if you have a turn 1 hand that doesn't do a lot, you still have a lot of ability to stop whatever your opponent's doing. So I do still think this iteration is pretty solid. I know folks are probably going to mention the Deer Servant. I don't own any copies of it, which is why I'm not playing it. I might end up crafting a playset if I really decide to play this deck more. I mean, obviously I could also use it in Branded too, but I'm not really sure if I want to play this deck so badly that I'm willing to spend, or rather I should say, I'm not really sure if I'm willing to play a playset of this card so badly that I'm willing to drop 90 UR on it, but maybe at some point in the future. If I was playing the Nadir Servants, probably would cut the Super Polys, would free up some extra deck space as well. Not that you really need it. There's a ton of things you could play in this extra deck. Another UR that I don't own but would be quite good is Albaz in pretty much any deck that's playing any amount of Fallen of the White Dragon. This is obviously insanely good in the mirror match, and if you're on Super Poly, it's just really good against branded in general. So yeah, well, not even on Super Poly, obviously you can just summon it through its own effect, but I guess you could summon it on your opponent's turn with Super Poly as well to disrupt their plays. But anyway, another UR that should be in here, but again, don't own it, so it's not. But yeah, I think I would like to try some amount of Mitsurugi. I really like the idea of using Fallen of the White Dragon as an engine, and I think this list is close to what I want. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I think the Nadir Servants really would help it make the deck more consistent. Granted, at that point, you would have to put the Herald of the Arclight, if I can spell, geez. The Herald of the Arclight in the extra deck, which means you'd have a light monster, so you might want to cut Dominus Impulse at that point, but I don't know if it would really conflict that much either. Just some food for thought for where to take this deck list in the future. Of course, if you're playing Nadir's Servant, not only could you use Herald of the Arclight to grab Mitsurugi stuff, but then it would be a pretty good idea to play like Golden Cloud Beast Malong or something like that to have some disruption options in there too. But I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about the list for now. So thank you as always for watching. Super appreciate the support. Watching to the end of every video is very helpful for not just me, but every smaller YouTube channel. So really do want to thank you for that kind of support. But that's going to do it for now. Let's move on to our outro, so that way we can also thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers for their very generous support as well. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.